share my screen here. I have a couple of slides to share. Okay, so hi everybody. My name is Lisa van der Werf. I'm the program chair for the Masters in Organisational Psychology and Behaviour. I'm an associate professor of Organisational Psychology in the Business School, and I'm really delighted to be joined today by Cara, who's a recent graduate from our Masters in Organisational Behaviour, and she's probably best placed, I think, to give us a realistic oversight of the experiences of the programme. Although I should mention we're both alumni. I did the program myself in 2007, so we'll try to share with you some of the logistics of the program and what it might look like to become a student and to join our learning community. And then we'll have a little bit of a discussion between Cara and myself on some of the challenges and how she's been able to use the program in her own work. So Sarah very confidently gave you a little overview of the business school already. I guess I might just try and communicate a little bit of the culture of the business school and what we're really focused on. Sarah mentioned that we're AACSB accredited, and this program is also accredited by the CIPD organisation, which is the leading HR body in Ireland, and by the Psychological Society of Ireland, which is essentially the only psychological body in Ireland. So we're also accredited by those organisations, and I think DCU Business School, what we've been most known for over the years really is our connection with industry and our focus on collaborating with industry and providing industry-ready graduates, and also a focus on excellence in teaching, and particularly something I think that links both of those has been that one really important hallmark of all of our graduates, and something that we're very focused on in the business school, is equipping our students with the ability to practice evidence-based management. So the ability to take scientific evidence on a particular topic and to combine that with their own expertise and data from their own organizations to try to make more evidence-based decisions as they practice. A question that I sometimes get asked is, why might I study psychology in a business school, or why might that mix of topics be a useful place to start in terms of building my career? And I guess something like organizational psychology lets us try and balance the theory that comes with a psychological discipline with the kind of applied skills of a business school and the business school kind of focus. So we're talking about developing a deeper understanding of people in the workplace, and then trying to help students situate themselves so that they're able to speak about that deeper understanding of people in the workplace with people who aren't from a psychology background, and in particular to sell that kind of knowledge to the people making decisions in their organizations. Our master's program is the longest running master's focused on organizational psychology in Ireland. It's been running since the early 90s. And one of the real advantages I think that brings us is that we have built up a fairly sizable faculty body that are focused on organizational psychology research. And so the people teaching onto this program are researching at the very cutting edge of what we understand about people in organizations, what we understand about relationships in organizations, or motivation, or what we understand about how people's well-being in organizations is impacted by everything that's going on around us at the moment. So the people who are teaching onto that program are also researching in that area and building knowledge at the same time. Something I think that we've become known for as a program over the years is a focus on building a positive classroom experience and really trying to establish a kind of a community around our program. So we're really lucky to have the support of alumni like Cara, who often come in to chat to students or support events like this. And we put an awful lot of effort into trying to help people build relationships as part of their programs. I'm sure Cara will have some thoughts later on her own team experiences as part of the program. But I mean, I know I did the program in 2007, and I'm still in touch with the people that I was part of a team with, as well as a number of my other classmates. And those resources have been pretty useful to me over the years as part of a kind of a wider career network. And so we're quite focused on helping people to become part of that community and to build those connections. It is a post-experience master's program, so we don't typically offer places to students with less than 5 years work experience. In every cohort, we might have a couple of exceptions to that, but they would generally be working in very relevant kind of roles. Over the last 5 or 6 cohorts, the average work experience is somewhere around 15 years of a student joining the program. So that gives you kind of an idea of the kind of general makeup of a class. And I guess there would be a pretty wide range around that. So as I said, we would have maybe 2 or 3 students that have less than 5 years work experience in the program, but we would also generally have 1 or 2 people who are either approaching retirement or already retired and looking at this as a way to kind of start up a second career or maybe step into consultancy as part of their active retirement. The focus is very much on topics like motivation, well-being at work, relationships at work and how people build effective relationships, understanding organizational change, the impact that that has on people and how you might go about delivering more effective change, thinking about leadership styles and how they work in different contexts and in different industries. And as part of that, thinking about how things work across contexts and industries. Obviously, we're drawing on scientific knowledge, but we're also very deliberate in our recruitment processes to try and get a wide range of students from across lots of different industries and from across lots of different organizations. So public and private service sectors, but also large organizations, small organizations, self-employed people, and the more diversity we can get in there in terms of industry backgrounds and academic backgrounds, the better as far as we're concerned, because that really lends itself to building a little bit of debate over what's the best way to do things in different situations and different contexts. Essentially, I think what we're aiming to do with a master's program like this is thinking about how we can contribute to people's performance and well-being at work, and what are the things that we maybe need to think about in terms of getting over some of the key challenges of our time. I mean, an awful lot of our master's students at the moment are working on topics around remote working and virtual teams, and for obvious reasons, we've all found ourselves in situations like that. And so we would have a lot of master's students thinking about those kinds of things, but also thinking about things like how to find and retain talent. I spoke to a master's student today who's looking at how employers can think about maintaining relationships with their employees when they're maybe not on site together, and thinking about how they can live up to the expectations that employees might have of them. And so those are some of the kind of challenges that our master's students are grappling with at the moment. Probably the most common question that I get about the program is, what's the difference between the Masters in Organisational Behaviour and the Masters in Organisational Psychology? And there's essentially no difference. So it's the same class, it's the same course, all the classes are shared, the teams are mixed between OB and Org Psych. The difference is in the initial undergraduate degree that the students have. So to be in the organisational psychology stream of the program, you have to have an undergraduate degree in psychology. To be in the OB stream of the program, your undergraduate degree can be in any area. And then the other distinction is just in the title of the qualification. So when you graduate, your piece of paper for your graduation either says Masters in Organisational Psychology or Masters in Organisational Behaviour. OB graduates then can't go on to work with the PSI to become chartered work and organisational psychologists. But what we've seen over the last few years is that they pretty much go on to have exactly the same roles in organisations, the same roles in consultancy practice. And for the moment, that doesn't seem to have been any sort of barrier. But basically, the distinction between them is an external accreditation distinction, and it's about that affiliation with the Psychological Society of Ireland. In terms of the logistics then, the classes will be on, for the 2021 intake, the classes will be on Wednesdays from 3 o'clock until 8 o'clock. And they are designed to allow you to work full-time or part-time alongside that. I'd say about 90-something% of our students are working full-time alongside the course. And that's one of the reasons why we try and keep it or we definitely keep it to that one evening a week. So rather than spreading it out over a couple of evenings, we've found over time that students tend to find it easier if we can keep it within that one window during the week. The fees are just under €13,000 for the 2-year course. And it's all continuous assessment. We don't have any formal exams, which I think is usually a positive thing for most students, particularly those of you who've been out of formal education for a good while. We do have a couple of unseen kind of quizzes, like case study type exercises that happen in class, and they're related to our CIPD accreditation. So it's a requirement of that accreditation that we have a very small amount of unseen assessment. But the culture of our program and the ethos of our program is very much focused on continuous assessment. We would prefer to help you build the skills to get your head around the literature and to apply it to your context. We're not expecting or asking or hoping that anybody would learn any of this off by heart. We do have group assignments that are part of the program, typically one per semester. They are capped in terms of how much they can be worth. So they're generally capped at 30% of a module or 11% of the overall mark for your master's program. And there are very few exceptions to that. But the group assignments form a really important part of the culture of the program, in that they are a very nice way to get to know people in your program and to build those really strong relationships and to share ideas. And when I started the program in 2007, all of my work experience had been in professional service firms. I'd never worked, bar casual jobs in bars and restaurants and things. I'd never worked kind of in an office environment outside of the professional services industry. But on my team, there was somebody who was senior management in public service. There was somebody who had been working in financial services and change management in a bank. There was somebody that was working in comp and bens for HR for an insurance company. And then there was somebody that was working for a small family run business. And I learned so much just from that discussion and from the assumptions that I never realized that I had about how the world of work worked, just because I had always kind of grown up, I guess, in that professional services environment. So the group assignments are capped to make sure that your overall mark relates to your individual performance, but they do form a really important part of the course experience. And then the other part of the course, and I think this is probably something that Cara will reflect on a little bit when we have our discussion, is you do complete an independent piece of research, a dissertation, and that's essentially what makes it a Master's of Science. And that is worth about 1/3 of the weight of the course. So it's worth almost as much as a year. And that piece of research can be on anything related to organizational psychology and behavior that is of interest to you. There are opportunities to get involved in faculty research and things that are ongoing, but if you've got a particular research interest that's driven by your work experience and what's going on in your organization, we also facilitate that. Just in terms of actual modules, this is just a quick overview of what happens in each year. So in year one, the emphasis is on building kind of a foundation of knowledge of the key theories in the area. So you've got a module on organizational psychology, one on strategy, and then in the second semester, the start of your dissertation process with a research methods module, and then a module on the theories around leadership and organizational change. And in your second year, then going a little bit deeper into some applied topics on selection and assessment, organizational learning development, talent management. And in semester two, a skills-based module on practicing organizational psychology, and the content of that changes every year depending on what's happening in the external environment. So for instance, in the kind of last crisis, we had workshop on underemployment and unemployment at work and getting people back into employment. And more recently then, quite a big focus on the future of work, remote working, human-computer interaction, those sorts of ideas. Also another skills-based module on coaching and mentoring, where you're paired with a member of the class and you kind of coach each other through that final semester, and a module on psychometrics and data analytics. This is an overview of just some of the employers of our graduates, so that you get a sense of where people are coming from. We do have some kind of statistics on what happens with people's careers, and it's a question that people often ask me is, what sort of career changes have people undertaken or gone through as a result of the program? And in a way, it's difficult because of the diversity of our students. So people have very different goals in what they're hoping to achieve from the program. About 80% of students report a career change or promotion either during or in the 2 years after the program. But if you take research methods with me, you'll hear me talking about the difference between correlation and causation. And I don't think that we can really claim total responsibility for that, because obviously a lot of people who are coming to do a part-time master's are already focused on moving forward with their careers or making some sort of change. But I think a better indication of the quality and impact of the program is that somewhere between 70 and 80% of our applicants report that how they found out about the course or the reason they decided to apply was because a recent graduate or the employer of a recent graduate recommended it to them. And I see that as a real testament to the impact that our program can have on people's careers and their ability to apply what they're learning at work. So that's kind of the boring logistics stuff. And I think our focus for the rest of the webinar will just be myself and Cara having a chat about her experience of the program. And my hope is that you might put some questions in the chat box as well, so that we can address those between us as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my slides so that our faces are a little bit bigger and we can have a chat with each other. Hi, Cara. Thank you so much for joining us today. You're very good. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
So I guess maybe just to get us started, could you tell us a little bit about your general experience of the master's program?
Yeah, sure. I can definitely attest to, I'd say 100% of everything you've just spoken to there. I was nodding my head away as you were chatting, but definitely I came into it with over 14 years of leadership experience coming in. And I'd recently made a move to HR within 2 years before I started the course. So my aim was to really develop obviously in HR, and because I changed direction in my career, was to kind of bed down some of that. But I had no idea, obviously, the professional growth that I was going to get out of it, but also the personal growth in myself. And I suppose maybe I was joining at a time in my life where I definitely thought it was progression onto the next level and that I wanted to be HRD. But now I know after coming through that course, it's definitely not what I want to do in terms of myself personally, because of all the topics that was covered. I found a real passion for motivation and engagement, and I'll get onto that later. But personally, I found loads of growth and professional growth as well, but also, as you said, my network as well has just exploded since, and we're still in contact. Obviously, I only graduated or finished up last July, but we're still in contact. Our group is still going, and it's about all the people that you meet. It's so varied across different industries, and especially around this time of what we're going through in the pandemic, like just trying to share ideas of what different organizations are doing, etc. So that's been a real gift. And also found everyone in the faculty is just so extremely supportive. Really, everyone is there to help you through and make this as easy as possible as it can be, to get through the process, right from registration to the lecturers, and obviously the library support as well. It's just phenomenal. Yeah, and also I got back into reading, lots and lots of reading. That's all I can say.
Yeah, there's no shortage of reading to be done.
For sure.
That was probably one of the things I think when I did it that I struggled with, was like just where in my day I would put all of that reading and the preparation for the course. How did you try and balance that alongside your job and obviously personal commitments? And
well, you'd have a reading list that you get from every semester that you go through in every module. So really staying on top of your reading every week, like it sounds quite simple, but it is key. And keeping it, we were taught as well by Isel, like your colleague, she shared with us about creating a log and kind of making notes on each article that you read. So when you go back and you write an assignment, all the work, like you just kind of have your top who wrote it, what were the main tenets, and the kind of points that you pulled out of it, because it's essential. That's the kind of the real challenge I found of the course, was when it came to writing assignments, to pull all your knowledge and reading together in a kind of a formatted way. But if you haven't kind of kept that log, it makes it all that much harder.
Yeah, yeah. I remember I used to try and read kind of one paper per morning before going to work or whatever. I just found that easier than trying to do kind of 4 hours of reading the night before going into class or whatever like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's good the way you have the recommended readings, like you say, for each class each week. So if you're sticking to that, then you're keeping on top when you go to write your assignment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were the biggest challenges for you? And I to be as honest as you can, because I do think it's important for people to have a preview of, it's not an easy road to take a part-time master's, and I think it's really useful for people to hear what were the hardest parts of that for you, and maybe how you coped with them.
I definitely think I was naive in the amount of time that I think it was going to take to read and write, because I had just done a certificate in leadership through UCC through my job, and I kind of thought, sure, it's just like writing assignments that we did for that. And you know, I did attend the opening day where we were advised on the amount of reading, but I didn't think I was like, that's doable. But having said that, like, I have a very, very busy full-time job and I have 3 children, so trying to balance and prioritize all of that, like, something has to kind of give. For me, it was just maybe not working out as much, but you have to make some sort of balance cuts, or it's just not possible for yourself. You're going to burn out. But I found that was the challenge, only particularly around assignment deadlines though, you know. But if you're on top of your reading and you're keeping it up, it's not as bad. But on that note, for me personally, I found the January, Lisa, sorry to say, the January assignments,
yeah,
they're just the hardest. And I to be honest, just because around Christmas you're really busy, obviously, with your personal life, and work, most generally organizations is very busy, so you know, you have to get through Christmas and then write your assignments in January, so you know, like, you have to do that. So that was tough, I found. And a little bit initially the group work, because it's different, because you used to being kind of solo and working on your own. So learning to cooperate and kind of work as a group and know everybody's strengths. Initially, the first assignment was a bit, you know, we're all coming together, forming, storming, norming, but we were in the same group the whole time. So by the end, we had a very clear process on who was the best to edit it, who was the best to format, who was the best to lead and put it all together. So that does work well, but it's challenging in the beginning for sure.
It is, yeah, particularly that very first assignment, I think. And that's one of the reasons we try and cap like how much it can possibly be worth, because otherwise it takes up so much of your time, and you feel like you're quite dependent, I guess, on that team for
exactly
your overall grade. And it takes an awful lot more time, I think, than an individual assignment.
Yeah, it does.
Even just coordinating people, like, because everybody's working full time and everybody has their personal commitments, and you have to figure out a time that suits people to meet, or like whether that's in the evenings or after class or at the weekends. And
yeah,
it definitely does.
It's even getting used to, you know, you have a certain style of writing and others mightn't, and it's kind of going together on that, and, you know, in a nice way, trying to get it over the line and submit it in the best possible format that it can be in. And then obviously, of course, is the dissertation. That was the main challenge. And I noticed you had it in capital letters at the end of your slide there. Well, I have to say, no, like, it's definitely was one of the most challenging things, because I've never done it before, and because I did it in the middle of a pandemic last year, and coinciding with my role, and obviously homeschooling. So for me, it was just particularly, but in general, if everything wasn't going on, it is obviously a huge chunk of work. And, you know, with the best of intentions, when you do your research proposal in first year and you have a Gantt chart and you definitely think you will stick to it, I would definitely advise people to, you know, in second year, to try and stick to it as much, because you've seen there the modules in second year kind of, there's more to do than first year, and you have to do your dissertation. So it's really a case of time management and being disciplined and trying to bed down what your dissertation topic is going to be as soon as possible, just to make it as easy as possible for yourself. But I do put it up there as being one of the most proudest things, like having giving birth to 2 children and getting through that process. It's what I'm most proud of.
Your
and I got a
kids and your
first, so I was
dissertation
happy.
in that order.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to the dissertation in a second, but I just want to pick up on something that you said a little while earlier about, like, underestimating the kind of time commitment that's involved. over the years, I get asked that all the time, like how much time on top of those 5 hours on like your Tuesday or your Wednesday does it take of your life? And my estimate is somewhere around 15 hours on top of those 5 hours of class. Does that reflect what you experienced, or?
Yeah, I would definitely say that 15, less than say on 20, yeah, between 15 and 20. If you're doing, like I tended to overread as well, which is probably something I wouldn't advise people to do, but like I sometimes went too far. So it's also being disciplined with that as well, not really taking on too much.
Yeah, but it's definitely worth spending some time thinking about where you would find those 20 hours. So for anybody who's listening, like that's a sizable amount of time that you're trying to find in your evenings and your weekends and maybe before work or wherever it is that makes sense for you. But it's something that you need to give a lot of thought to before you take on something like this.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Yeah, I agree.
So if we go back to your dissertation then, Cara, what was your dissertation on?
My dissertation was on vertical vulnerability and its relationship to emotion in the context of felt trust. So essentially I was looking at, and the cohort I was looking at was middle managers and how they can express vulnerability vertically up to their senior leaders who are showing them in a lot of felt trust and I suppose vulnerability themselves. So, and what I was really crossing over was as well emotional regulation and vulnerability, which were kind of pieces of literature that hadn't really been done before, and that cohort hadn't really been looked at. So in my particular case as well, my dissertation was a bit, wasn't a left field, but it was different in that it possibly hadn't been looked at before. So that in itself was a bit more challenging, but also exciting as well to write. But because I had the kind of freedom to look and I wasn't constrained, but it was very nuanced, so it was a bit more challenging, I think, as well. This is what I mean as well about kind of creating work for yourself sometimes too. But I mean, I'm glad I did it. I mean, I loved it, and I did well in it. But yeah, you can make things as hard as for yourself or as easy, I think, in the course.
Yeah, that is true. But I do think, and I think that reflects how proud you are of what you achieved with your dissertation, is that as with a lot of things, it's you get out what you put into it. So sometimes taking a little bit of a harder road where you're genuinely studying something that's a new contribution to knowledge, it's not the easiest thing to do. And it's certainly, I mean, that's the bar for getting a PhD, is that you make a contribution to knowledge, and that's not something that you have to meet to get a master's in a particular topic. But at the same time, it is something that you can be a little bit more proud of, rather than just showing something again in your context.
Yeah, and that's why and at the same time, it was really engaging for me to read as much as I can and to start like pulling things together, saying this hasn't been looked at before, and that for me, so it made the process more exciting for me to do it, to get through it. Definitely.
Yeah. And maybe that's something, I guess, as I reflect on my experience of the program, that kind of experience of realizing how much there is actually still to be known, is, I guess, like when you take on a new topic like this, sometimes you think that you're going to learn this is the black and white answer to how do you improve employee engagement, or what's the best type of leadership style, or and in most circumstances those are not questions that can be answered as a black and white answer. And so getting an understanding of research methods and how you go about asking a question and answering that question is actually a really important part of mastering any discipline or any topic.
Yeah, and it's brought so much more to me, even in my current role now, the whole research piece as well around, and what you spoke about earlier on about kind of evidence-based management or kind of research within your job, because lots of stuff now that I've taken on since has been based around, all evidence-based research in terms of some health and well-being stuff that I've looked at, or some leadership programs that I'm actually delivering on at the moment. So in a sense, that has really helped me in my current career. And as you said, to have that conversation with leaders, also to have the confidence in what I'm speaking about first, but now I have the knowledge, and now also I'm going further and looking into it myself, and not just taking things at face value, having that kind of skill now to look at research papers and understand, and kind of skim through them and take what I need from them. That's been a huge benefit for me too.
Yeah, it's painful in first year as you like read your first few and try and figure out what are the important bits and how do I get the message as quickly as possible. But I do think this skill is invaluable as you move on in your career.
Yeah, 100%. And even on that now, just in terms of applicability to my current role, what I'm doing now,
Yeah,
I think like all the modules that, as I was going through every module, it really, for me, it really related to my role as a HR business partner, because everything that the modules covered is literally what I would be working in day to day, or had worked in. So before I became a HR business partner, I was in talent acquisition. So the selection and assessment module kind of really fed into that for me in the psychometrics. But even at the very beginning, when we did strategy and innovation, that we had just changed our model to become more strategic business partner. So that even for me was like, I know some people they struggled through that one. You know, most people don't like every module, but I found it so interesting because at that point it was so key to me and what I was going through in my actual role. Similarly, like the leadership and change module. So like I say, I had 14 years leadership experience, but learning the psychology behind certain theories and modules was just really interesting to me. And like I said, now we devised a new leadership program and I'm delivering that all for this whole year. We've a leadership passport that we have to get through. So wouldn't have done that or put myself forward for that had I not gone through the masters, particularly because I'm in business partnering, but I'm kind of crossing over now and there's more of a marriage between my role and talent and OD, talent and organizational development. So I can confidently like dip my toe in that department and work with the manager there. So that's really gives me lots of exposure, but more so than ever, I suppose, is the motivation and org psychology, kind of information around trust and organizational commitment, because now I used to look after health and well-being, but now I've kind of elevated that and I'm the lead on employee experience and engagement, purely from things that I've brought in after finishing with them on the masters last year. And even more so actually recently, as I have an opportunity to get a global role within my organization as a center of excellence in employee experience and engagement. So that's really key. And
that's
also
fantastic. Well done.
yeah, that's actually only happening recently. And then coaching and mentoring, that module, now I've brought in that coaching into, because of my employee experience and engagement role. I'm now doing coaching on certain topics every month. So I'm doing group coaching, which I would have never have done had I not gone through that module with Sarah. Yeah. So
that's fantastic.
just elevating what I'm able to do a lot more in my role and opening lots of doors for me.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I'm really I'm delighted for you, Cara, that it's been so useful and that you've been able to apply it so directly. I mean, obviously when we design it with the intention that people will be able to, but you've got such a big long list of all the things that you've been able to apply and how. And some of the people listening might be wondering if everybody on the program is from a HR kind of a background, and maybe you could reflect a little bit on the makeup of your team and the program in general and kind of your thoughts on whether it's useful outside of that arena.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, my team is a real mixture of people on it, because we obviously had myself, and then we had a post undergrad who just came through. So she's obviously one of your exceptions. So she was just straight in. And then we had a retired gentleman who was looking to do something, get this master's and do consultancy afterwards. We had a business owner as well who was running her own business and just wanted to get more knowledge around org psych to develop certain programs in her company, and a teacher. So huge variety within my own team, but even on the course as well, like around the team, you could see the good few from HR, but a lot of others from different organizations just wanted to get more information or looking to do like consultancy work themselves. Yeah.
I'd say like just looking at it over the years, I'd say somewhere around 30%, maybe 25% of people working in what I would call HR or HR related kind of roles. We typically get probably another 30% of each cohort would be kind of senior management who are coming from like a very different background. So, maybe did their original qualification in chemistry or engineering or some sort of technology or whatever, and get to a point in their careers, I guess, where their job becomes less about engineering or less about technology and more about people. So we got a lot of people that are trying to upskill within this kind of discipline to build on what kind of technical expertise they had before.
completely reflective of the world we're living in right now about relationship. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, yeah. I think we just have one question at the moment from